We can go ahead and call to order the meeting of the Zionsville Board of Parks and Recreation for Wednesday, September 13th. First item of business is the roll call. Vice President Jill Pack.
Here.
Secretary or Treasurer John Salowitz, or Secretary John Salowitz, not here tonight. Ryan Cambridge. Here. Chris Barksdale.
Here.
Billy Lane.
Here.
Coralie Palmer.
Yeah.
And so we have 6 tonight. We have a quorum and we can go ahead and continue on with the meeting. First item up for discussion is the approval of the August 9th, 2023 meeting minutes. Do we have any questions or comments on the minutes for that meeting? Then do I have a motion to approve?
I will move to approve the August 9th
We have
minutes.
a motion from Jill Pack. Do we have a second?
Second.
Ryan Cambridge seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, the next item on the agenda, the approval of our special meeting minutes from August 30th. Has everyone had a chance to take a look? Any questions or comments? Do I have a motion to approve the August 30 special meeting minutes?
So moved.
Ryan Cambridge makes a motion. Do I have a second? Kimberly Lane seconds. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? That passes unanimously as well. Next item on the agenda, public presentations and comments. We're going to get to you guys in a minute. Just hang tight. Anybody else have any comments or questions for us? Anybody online, Joe? No? Okay, we're good to go. Let's move on then. The Parks Foundation update, and our Parks Foundation liaison is Jill Pack. Jill?
Okay, I'll just have a brief update with the Park Foundation. Effective officially January 1st of 24, they'll be adding 2 new board members, Joe Locke and Megan Bulla. And those 2 will start to attend meetings, but won't be able to participate in any formal votes prior to January 1st. As of September 5th, they have hired a part-time administrative coordinator, that is Jan Hornaday. And she will be coordinating a lot of their fundraising efforts, their grant seeking, their day-to-day operations moving forward. There's going to be finally going to be a ribbon cutting for the pollinator field at the golf course tomorrow morning at 9. And following that, the Park Foundation will be having a volunteer weed pull along with the Parks Department in the area to clean it up. And finally, September 23rd, they will be at the farmers market, and we'll have some, I think it's elderberry bush to raffle away, and some other giveaways and information.
Great. And they must be looking forward to the closing of the Carpenter Nature Preserve to sort of unleash the Parks Foundation to do more things.
They are.
Yes. Well, we'll talk about that later in this meeting. Anybody have any questions or comments for Jill? All right, let's move on then to the staff reports, and we begin with our Superintendent of Parks and Recreation, Jared Logsdon. Jared?
Thank you, John. Good evening, Park Board. Just a couple of items to highlight from the superintendent report. Myself and the Director of Recreation, Mindy Murdoch, have been continuing to collaborate with the Fright Nights event at Maple Lawn Farmstead. It's coming along great. The Fright Nights LLC is building that haunted event attraction within the barns as we speak, and we're working on finalizing documentation for the MOU between our organizations and building out that ticketing system as well. So everything is moving along great with that. In August, we also held an all staff to celebrate the summer coming to an end, possibly one of our busiest seasons of the 4. As well as saying goodbye to some of our seasonals that helped us maintain our parks throughout the summer and infuse more activity for our residents within our parks. So another item of note, myself and Mindy also met with the Chamber of Commerce here in Zionsville to discuss collaborations between our Winterfest celebrations and Christmas in the Village. So working together, we're going to bring back the open market. That was a huge success within Winterfest last year. To the bricks right off Main Street, as well as having Christmas in the Village down in Elm Street. So much more to come about the Winterfest events for this year in our park system. And finally, I want to say thank you and appreciate the support as we wrote a letter to the Plan Commission concerning the Bradley Ridge project. As that project moves forward, it still ultimately requires additional approvals. And it will be continued in October for the Plan Commission, but moving forward, there will be a public trail within that development along Eagle Creek. So I appreciate the support from the community and this board as we motion for that to be included in that project. And that is all from the superintendent report.
Any questions or comments for Jared? All right, let's move on then. Thank you, Jared. The next item on the agenda is a report from our Director of Maintenance, Chris Flanagan. Good evening, Chris.
Good evening. How y'all doing?
Good. Good.
All righty. All righty. So for August staffing, we had 8 hours of bereavement leave, 8 hours of comp time, and 120 hours of PTO. So we had some vacations. We had one instance of graffiti, which consumed just about 1 staff hour. Some general things, like Jared mentioned, we said goodbye to our seasonal part-timers and our seasonal natural resources intern. We poured a concrete pad and installed a memorial bench at the 9th tee at the Zionsville golf course. At the golf course, we also cold patched some potholes. We mowed down tall patches of thistle and sedge at the roughs, and we trimmed broken branches that were hanging off of a maple tree at the 4th tee. In the shop, we worked on our maintenance area, making sure that we were all in compliance for an IDEM inspection. Happy to report we had 0 issues found. We replaced the bike pumps heads at Town Hall in Overly Warman. We began ordering and receiving and placing items in prep for opening the Zionsville trailhead. All righty. At Big 4, we installed additional dog waste stations south of the dog park near Heritage Trail. We removed silt fencing along the northern corridor. We did some storm cleanup and cleared fallen trees and debris. We had a very large bald-faced hornet's nest near the Nancy Burton trailhead. We got that down, sprayed and removed. We placed additional trash cans at the rail trail bridge to Overly Warman, and we, along where the contractors are going to open the rail, we've begun doing a little cleaning up behind them. And as they keep clearing out, we'll just keep doing that, more to follow. At Heritage Trail, we cleaned up, cleared paths, perimeters, and rubbish busted the community gardens, getting prepped for the end of season for those. We replaced GFI outlets at the shelter. Same at Lincoln Park, we replaced GFI outlets at the gazebo. We accommodated the summer concert series, taking chairs out there every Wednesday and bringing it back on Thursdays. We drained and power washed the fountain out there. Same at Elm Street Green. We replaced the hoses, fittings, drained and power washed the fountain. And we trimmed out tree saplings and invasives that had started growing up through the entrance bed and the sign. Mulberry Fields, we pruned locust trees along the playground and splash pads, and we adjusted the fence gate at the pickleball court. Starkey Park, we had replaced some broken handrails on switchbacks from storm damage. At the front, the Cornelian cherries, we deadwooded those. We used some of that debris to slash some user-made trails that have cut through the prairie. Then general clearing falling trees from the nature trails. Turkey Foot, just general clearing fallen trees, storm damage, clean up the hardscape trails. Pretty much the same at Legion, trimming the locust trees in the sumac. Zionsville Nature Sanctuary, this was fun. On August 2nd, myself and our Natural Resources Tech Sam and the intern Jack partnered with the Recreation Department to lead the session on invasive species for the Junior Master Naturalists. I spoke about the emerald ash borer and its effect on ash trees and park systems, and Sam taught the kids how to properly identify a variety of invasive species. And we led a service component where we removed invasive bush honeysuckle, autumn olive, and some multiflora rose. Overly Warman, we expanded our mowing and trimming duties. We cleared fallen trees along the hardscapes, cleared debris from the hardscape paths and the stairs in the woods along the disc golf course, along with clearing those out. And we've been trimming up the mountain bike trail all season long. That's all I got.
You have a busy group.
Trying.
It's a lot of stuff. One thing that I wanted to mention to you that I've heard from people just anecdotally, that there are some cracks in the pickleball courts that the pickleball players are concerned about. I don't know, you're the expert, but it's something I think to monitor to make sure that they are not getting to the point where they're
we're
problematic.
Keep and look at it. And like Jared and I, we've been in work with the contractors, keep and monitor so we can remedy.
Okay, and there's also some talk about putting a gate on the other side. Like
we have to get with the contractor for that as well, because we'll have to set new footings, and those are set in a specific way. So each one of those panels, most of them are the same size, but when you get into that corners, they get into custom size. So it's not as simple as just swapping one panel and swapping one gate. So we're going to have to get the sleeves to go in the ground, pull some things out, auger down. It's a little more involved of a process than just swapping one panel in the gate.
Well, the pickleball community would appreciate us working on that. Are we making progress in that then?
Absolutely.
Okay. Any other questions or comments for Chris? No? Okay, thank you. All right, next up, our golf course manager, Mike Wall. The proud owner of a new tractor that is trimming our greens. Our greens have never looked better, right? Or they haven't looked better for a long time.
Are you reading?
Is that what you're gonna say? Okay, I didn't mean to steal your thunder. Sorry, Mike.
Yeah, so in August, we had another great month, $87,000 to bring our total to date to just shy of $500,000 for the year. So our rounds to date are over 20,000 for the year. In the month of August, we had 3,967 rounds. So approximately, well, not approximately 132 rounds per day. As we get into September and October, it's going to kind of dwindle. Days get shorter. Right now we have middle school golf, so we're kind of accommodating them. Our last tee time right now is 5:48. So last year, September, we averaged 95 rounds per day. October, we averaged 70 rounds per day. But with that being said, we probably still will get to over 25,000 rounds for the year. So we're trending in the right direction and looking pretty good. As Chris mentioned, the parks staff put the concrete down for the Penny Putter Memorial Bench. On September 23rd, they're going to come out and have a dedication for that. As John has alluded to a couple times, our triplex mower is doing great. The greens have never looked better. The golfers have raved about how smooth the greens are. And no, I don't drive the mower. So on October 23rd, or I'm sorry, October 30th and 31st, we're going to aerate tees, greens, and fairways. We only do that once a year, but that's when we're going to do that this year. That's when we typically do it end of the year. So we're not really interfering with play. Last year when we did it the same date, and then we closed November 11th. So it was kind of perfect timing. And then one last thing is that scoreboard that we have there has been ripped down, and we're getting a new scoreboard installed tomorrow. Scoreboard / sign. So that's going to be new one's going to be installed tomorrow. So.
Any questions or comments for Mike?
Yeah.
I'm just curious, how do our averages as far as, dollars that we've taken in and the number of rounds compare to previous years? Is it better or the same or?
No, so last August, we were around $80,000 for the month. We've never done over $500,000 in a year. So we're definitely, we're going to be $150,000 for the year. So rounds, last year we did about 14,000, but we didn't open until June 11th.
So it was weird. I remember that.
Yeah. So, but our rounds per month are above every month this year. So.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else? Thank you, Mike. It appears that I skipped over something in the agenda here. So let's hear from our Director of Maintenance Services, Mindy Murdoch. Mindy has a lot to say tonight. Good evening, Mindy.
Hello. All right, so I put some things in front of you, but for August, we had 1,290 walk-ins to the Zionsville Nature Center. So it has gone down a little bit with kids getting back into school, but still trending very high. We should end up higher than we were last year as far as attendance goes. Just a few updates on some various programs that went on. So in front of you, I gave you kind of a summary recap of our junior IMN program that was put together by naturalist Rachel Felling, who kind of coordinated majority of that, as well as the adult IMN. So we did wrap that one up with 19 participants on there. If you haven't seen it, I do have a paper copy. You guys are welcome to come look at the end of the board meeting, but it's also available online. One of the things that the IMN program has to do is volunteer hours. For the kids, they need to do 6 hours, and we actually incorporated that into their camp. So they did about an hour and a half of Hoosier River Watch. They did an hour and a half of invasive plant removal with Chris and his team. And then the rest of the time they spent putting together a field guide on Eagle Creek, which we highlighted during Creek Week. But it is kind of something new to the program. So when we presented it to the DNR office, they had never seen that one before. So I will happy to say that the project is actually being presented to the IMN Council this fall on what was done. So, and then of course, thank you to the library for helping us use the laptop so the kids could actually do that work. So they did a great job. A couple other things. We of course had our Creek Week. Unfortunately, we did have some bad weather for one of our creek cleanups, but overall went very well. We did able to get one cleanup in through that week, and overall talking to park staff as well as stormwater, we really did like how we kind of broke that what was once one day into kind of a week-long celebration. And even though there might have been a bad day of weather, we were able to get a lot of different things in that we would have probably had to cancel, but it was again just that one day. So two other things, if you haven't seen on social media, we have begun our planning for our Eclipse program for April 2024. So we're calling it Total Eclipse of the Park. So we hope you come on out to Mulberry Fields and have some fun trying to pull in as many community partners as we can, and expecting, hopefully, if the weather works, a very large crowd. So, and then as Jared had alluded, we did meet with the Chamber of Commerce in regards to Winterfest and continuing on with some of those programs. So we are putting kind of details on, we'll have Christmas in the Park on December 9th. From 10 to noon down at Elm Street Green, and that will have Santa and Mrs. Claus and reindeer. And then we will have our Makers Market on December 16th, and that will be down on the bricks. We actually did get approval because we have that permit to be able to have it there on the brick street. So we're hoping to get at least 50 vendors. If I get 50, I'll be super happy. So
Sounds good.
that's all I have.
Any questions or comments for Mindy? Glad to see the Winterfest planning moving forward. That's great. I think that'll be a nice event. And, maybe in future years, we'll bring back an ice skating rink and
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, we'll keep the brand going.
keep the
So when
brand
it
going.
comes
That's
back,
great.
it'll
Okay.
fit right in.
Thank you, Mindy.
Yes.
All right, next up on the agenda, report from our Parks Attorney, Amy Nooning. Amy?
Thank you. The closing is set for Carpenter Nature Preserve for October 5th. So we are working hard with the carpenters and their legal counsel and their accountant to finalize the contract for purchase and the associated documents to document the gift that they're giving the town. You have in your packet, I believe, a draft contract for purchase, but that is just the initial draft. So that won't be the final one, but we just wanted to put that in front of you so you are aware of the general structure of it so far. We also are going to have a resolution related to the Carpenter acquisition, but I think that that's going to be addressed later on in new business. So we can discuss that at that point. The only other thing I have to bring up is there's a tract of land. It's a little island in Lions Park that was donated to the town in 1962. And it's where the tennis court is and the top spot back there. And so we've had some conversations, and Jared might be able to allude, but there are some good reasons to consider transferring that, donating that to the Lions Club. So they could do the maintenance and, have a little more cohesion down there with ownership of land. So if the park board would like to do that, what you could do is you could formally vote to recommend the transfer to the town council and to the administration. And the reason it has to be structured that way is because the town owns this tract of land, not the park board. And so in order to transfer this, it would have to be approved by resolution of the town council, and then the deed would be signed by the mayor. So, but you can initiate that process if you'd like to. And I'm happy to, provide the drafts for the town council and the draft of the deed for the mayor to consider too, if you.
Yeah, it's a little under an acre, right? Or an acre, about an
Yeah.
acre.
Yep, right around there.
Yeah.
Are,
So-
are we anticipating this not being received well? Like, do we need to have like arguments of why this would be a good thing as far as like our costs that we incur?
No, and
Or is
the
it-
Lions Club is gratefully ready to receive it if we.
That I get, that like leadership in other parts of the town. Are they
I don't
okay with this?
anticipate that this is going to be a big issue. I'll just go a little bit off of what Amy said. So back in the 60s, the early 60s, Lincoln Park actually went across Cedar Street. So where the Tucker building is now was part of Lincoln Park. And it included the tennis courts and the playground there. So at that time, this town of Zionsville basically had no parks. That was the only park that the town of Zionsville had, except for Lions Park. So the Lions donated a little section of land so we could reinstall a tennis court and a playground.
So we're just.
So this is basically returning to the Lions what they gave us 60 years ago. And what it does is it gives them a contiguous path between their current park and the Henkeline property, which they now own. So I think it makes a lot of sense. We're giving them a good piece of land. We rebuilt that playground 2 years ago. We repaved the tennis courts last year. So now's a good time to transfer ownership of that so the Lions can do with it what they think is best, given the way their park lays out now. Anything else to add, Jared?
Just as we continue to expand and offer services in more and more of Zionsville, as our community continues to grow, instead of just stepping out of the way and allowing the Lions Club to have kind of full purview of their park, but also allowing us to reallocate those resources of our maintenance team and supplies to other parts of our park system. So we don't have to do it all. We don't ask to do it all. We appreciate partners when we can provide these services.
Yeah, and the Lions Club is a tremendous community partner, always has been. And, we've talked about getting an easement to build a pathway that goes from Lions Park to the Elm Street Green. This is not a quid pro quo. This is a separate arrangement. But we just thought that the fact that they've taken on this new property, the Henkeline property, 5 acres, just to the north of their current park, it seems like the right time to give them this land too, so they can have a clear shot at it. Anything else?
Nope, kind of covers it.
Okay.
I agree. I wonder if we need to, because that's history that a lot of the town won't know.
Right.
If
Right.
we can educate.
Yes,
about the
absolutely.
history of it. I think that's important.
When
Piece of the
we
story.
when we take this to the town council, we'll share that history. Some of them may already know
Yeah.
that was the background. I didn't know that until recently, actually, if that was the background of how we came to own that little section there, Alliance Park. So anybody have any further comments or questions? So with that, I'll go ahead and make a resolution that we consider giving that plot of land to the Lions Club, and that we take that up the chain to the town council and to the mayor's office. Do we have a second? Kimberly Lane seconds. Let's take a vote. Jill Pack.
Aye.
Ryan Cambridge. Chris Barksdale.
Aye.
Kimberly Lane. Coralie Palmer. I say aye as well, making it a unanimous 6-0 vote. All righty. Thank you, Amy. Anything else?
No.
Okay. Under new business now, we have Eagle Scouts in the room, or Eagle Scout candidates in the room, and they have a request for us tonight. Jared's going to tell us more about that.
Yeah, I will actually step aside and allow our Director of Recreation, Mindy, to
Yeah.
set the stage and invite our guests up here to talk about their initiative.
Awesome.
All right. I thought it was best to have them come in case you guys had questions versus me trying to explain it all. So, what is it? About a year, almost a year. had an idea of putting in a sensory garden at Mulberry Fields. If you're familiar with the playground at Mulberry Fields, is this strange grassy projection in the middle of the playground that serves no purpose. No one ever uses it. But the idea of having another way to get into the playground itself, but then focusing on something more. So you have a little more accessibility and reaching those that may want to use that in different ways. So just an idea we had. And thankfully, Joe actually approached me as he was looking for doing his Eagle Scout project. And I kind of pitched the idea. He actually ran with it and put together. So part of his project is he actually developed an overall plan for the scape. I do have that, and I'm happy to pass it down if you guys want to look. I'm sure it will evolve as it goes through. But part of his plan is, of course, as all Eagle Scouts, is to raise the funds to actually make those pieces happen. And so that's why we are here to the board, because some of that fundraising he wants to do will actually be going on at Mulberry Fields for this project, but wanting to get your approval to do so. So Joe, do you want to explain what you want to do? And I will show this.
So basically what we wanted to do was build a sensory garden in that grass Mulberry Fields, as she just said. And what the plan for that is the reason is to help people with sensory needs and to stimulate the 5 basic senses in engaging ways. And it would be like the reason it would benefit the community is reason for the Eagle Project, and it would be an inviting and inclusive part of the community for people of all abilities. The reason everyone benefits is because people with sensory deprivation issues like autism need to destigmatize sometimes, and this will help them do that. And it will be a place that is accessible to wheelchairs and just a beautiful part of the park. A sensory garden basically stimulates all the senses. So for all the senses, the sound would be the bird feeders that allow birds to call for one another, ornamental grasses swishing in the winds, leaf crunching on the ground, and wind chimes. The smell would be native flowers that would be placed in cedar beds used to produce an aromatic like smell in the park. Touch would be plants and trees with interesting textures, and 2 activity walls, which Evan would be building. Taste would be 2 persimmon trees, 1 male, 1 female, that would make fruits and possibly herbs like basil planted as well. And sight would be things like plants that attract butterflies, like butterfly bushes, and bright colorful flowers. What I would be contributing to the project would be a stamped concrete pathway to provide a sensory feel for people that would go through on wheelchairs. I would be doing 2 planters with flowers in them, and then I would be planting the 2 persimmon trees. And then I'm going to pass it to JT to talk about his plan.
I'm JT. I will be planting plants, adding butterfly bushes, tall grasses, and box for shoes to go into. And now to Sam.
I'm Sam Wilson. I would be building a concrete pad for a kaleidoscope planter to go on top of to stimulate sight. I would be putting in the dirt and plantings for the planter, and it would be a relatively small planter.
The other person who isn't here would be doing a flower sensory pad, which was on the paper, and it would have different feels for your feet as you walk over it too, which is why we would take our shoes off, and then they would be able to walk over and it would provide a sensory feel on their feet. He would also do, inside of that would be different sections, like some painted rocks, some turf grass, rubber mold, and pea gravel, but also giving him freedom to choose those as he wishes. And then Evan.
I would be dealing with sound and touch by building a xylophone and building both activity walls. How to edit.
I would integrate birdhouses into the sensory garden and add wind chimes and place gravel for the wheelchair accessible benches.
So the larger reason that we're here is to seek fundraising on your guys' behalf. What our ideas for fundraising would be to sell engraved bricks, targeting people who would like a brick built into the planters in the landscape, a bake sale at St. Alphonsus Church and other churches in town, selling first aid kits at sporting events at Mulberry Fields like rugby, and also at Lions Park at Little League games. And then as well as seeking donations from vendors, and our total estimated cost would be around $12,000. That's all.
Much?
$12,000.
12,000? How long do you think it'll take to raise that?
We're hoping to raise most, if not all of it, by the end of the winter.
So why is it that you're so open to this idea or so interested in this idea of having a
It's
playground like
something
this?
that I was passionate about when it was given to me. I know people who have learning disabilities, and I thought it was cooler than just doing some benches or something that could be really easy.
It's a lovely idea.
Yeah.
It's very admirable that you would take this on, and it's a well thought out project. Everybody has a little piece of it,
Thank you.
and would wish you well in raising the money for it. So what would you like us to do?
We're seeking approval to fundraise on the town's behalf.
Okay, during other events that
Right.
take place.
Yes.
At Mulberry, yes.
And we can't give you permission to raise money at the Lions Park or
Okay.
for the Lions Club. You need to go talk to them.
Okay.
Have you done that?
Not yet.
Okay. Well, that would have to be something you would do
Okay.
too with the Lions, but if anybody has any other questions or comments, or if anybody doesn't have any questions or comments, we can go ahead and take a vote, right? We're gonna pass this, Amy? That's what we need to do?
Yes.
Okay. Would anyone like to make a resolution to allow the Boy Scouts to raise money for their project?
I will.
Coralie Palmer makes the motion. We have a second. Second from Ryan Cambridge, and let's take a vote. Jill Pack,
Hi.
Ryan Cambridge. Chris Barksdale,
Aye.
Kimberly Lane, Coralie Palmer. And I'll say aye too, making it a unanimous vote. Congratulations and good luck with your project. Can't wait to see it. All right, always good to have young men in uniform in the room, right? All right, thank you, guys. Really appreciate it. Next up, discussion of a fall tree purchase. And Jared is back at the microphone. Jared?
And if you wish to leave after this, feel free. You don't have to stay around for all this, but if you want to tune in, stay put. Yes, on to fall trees. So each fall, we take a look at memorial trees that need replaced, as well as some gaps in our canopy that could be filled. This fall's tree purchase is a little larger because we are also purchasing trees that will go along the rail trail near the Spring Knoll community as part of a collaboration on reestablishing some forest reforestation along those properties for additional privacy for our neighbors. So within this order, there are 49 total trees, and they will replace and install returning and new memorial trees, place the 13 maple trees within the dog park, and as well as establish the additional trees in our park system along the rail trail and other parks. Joining this effort, we're also going to utilize the trees within our tree nursery at Heritage Trail Park. So we continue to have great success with that, fostering those saplings that we receive either through donations from the Boy Scouts and Cub Scouts, or also from the DNR with their wholesale pricing. So had great success with that, and we will be transplanting a number of those into our park system as well. So with your consideration tonight, the quote for Woody Warehouse to purchase this fall order of trees for 49 trees would be $7,543.46. And these funds would come through our general fund, as well as our donation line and our funds associated with the dog park.
Any questions or comments about trees?
I
We like
them.
trees. We all like trees. Okay. Would anybody like to make a motion to accept this bid from Woody Warehouse to buy trees for our parks? So moved.
You beat me.
Kimberly Lane makes a motion. We have a second.
I'll second.
Chris Barksdale seconds. Jill Pack,
Aye.
Ryan Cambridge.
Aye.
Chris Barksdale,
Aye.
Kimberly Lane.
Aye.
Coralie Palmer, and I say aye as well, making it unanimous. All righty.
One more tree item. We just received a quote for removing a tree at the Zionsville Golf Course. So this is a dead and dying cottonwood that's right in the middle of the fairway of the golf course, starting to drop rather large tree branches, which while it's in play could cause some conflict and safety concerns. So shopped around and got the lowest quote from one of our preferred vendors. So to remove that 52-inch dying cottonwood in the middle of the golf course, grind the stump and remove the branches and materials would be $5,965. And these funds would come through a budgeted line in the golf course budget.
All right. Anybody have any questions about that? We have a motion to accept the contract to remove the tree from the golf course.
So moved.
Ryan Cambridge makes a motion. We have a second.
Second.
Jill Pack seconds. Let's take the vote. Jill Pack.
Aye.
Ryan Cambridge.
Aye.
Chris Barksdale.
Aye.
Kimberly Lane. Coralie Palmer. I say aye as well, making it unanimous. All righty. Is that it?
That's it.
On that? Okay. Next item on the agenda, Carpenter Nature Preserve acquisition.
All right, the exciting time is upon us. As you know, the bond funds landed in August. So now that those are sitting in the bank, we have just a couple months left of this year to work on closing with the Carpenters to allow our option to remain viable for that purchase. So Amy has been working very closely with the Carpenters and their representation to finalize the purchase agreement. And the resolution before you would be a resolution authorizing the purchase of real property and authorizing designated signatory, and that designated signatory would be John Stair on behalf of the park board. Amy, did I leave anything out?
Well, no,
Couple
not
things.
really, just that this resolution is required by the title company. They need a formal resolution designating the authorized signer for all of the closing documents. So while you have already approved many resolutions regarding the purchase of the Carpenter Nature Preserve with the bond funds, this is specifically to authorize the purchase and then to authorize John to sign any and all documents associated with it.
Do we have a resolution number?
I believe it's
8.
2023-8.
Just like buying a house, except a lot more expensive and a lot more land. So, any questions, comments? Do we have a motion to accept the document and my authorization to sign on behalf of the Parks Board? Coralie Palmer makes a motion. Chris Barksdale seconds. Let's take a vote. Joe Pack.
Aye.
Ryan Cambridge.
Aye.
Chris Barksdale.
Aye.
Kimberly Lane.
Aye.
Coralie Palmer. And I'll sign off on that as well and say aye. Thank you. That was easy. And then the next step, the next item on the agenda deals also with Carpenter.
So keeping the momentum and the project on our anticipated timeline for opening to the public in a couple of years, we begin the construction document creation for phase 1 of Carpenter Nature Preserve. So phase 1 again is kind of Starkey Light is what we're calling it. It'll have accessible trails, outdoor classroom, and an outdoor restroom, year-round facility with flushing restrooms. It's good. As well as a parking location. So just to get the people out to the preserve, start experiencing such a vast area here, right here in Zionsville, and beginning to build those memories and experiences out there. So in talking with several firms, again, REA understood the assignment. They provided the best proposal for the scope of work, and that's no coincidence. They were also the ones that assisted us with the master planning. So understanding that they have the best idea of the intentions and the vision for this project, especially as we begin the initial design. So Tricia and her team had developed this proposal for the scope of work that'll be included within this design phase of our project. So beginning with boundary and topography surveys, schematic and design development, then the curation of those construction documents for phase 1, as well as the permitting for that project, the bidding, award, and the construction administration throughout that first phase of construction once awarded. So for those services, and we do have Tricia here to further explain any items and discuss in additional detail. Those services for that duration would be $399,290. I would request your consideration of approval of this proposal on or after October 5th, after the property is signed and closed with the Parks Department or Park Board to begin those services.
We want to have Tricia come up and say a few words about this. Tricia McClellan from REA. Good evening,
Good
Tricia.
evening. Jared did a really good job of explaining all that's included in the proposal, but yeah, I'd be happy to answer any questions. It does take us through schematics, so we'll start with the master plan, but really dive in and get more detailed with that schematic design all the way through construction documents and construction administration. So that does include our time through the construction timeline too.
So if all goes well, when would we anticipate an opening date to the public?
So we're anticipating bids would be let next spring. And then construction started either late spring or early summer. And we're anticipating 12 to 16 months for construction. So a year to a year and a half for construction.
So where does that put us? The spring or the summer of 25?
Yes.
No.
26, yeah. Oh,
And we were going to get some grant money that was going to come in after we make the purchase. Can you tell us about that? When that's going to be in our account?
Yes, so within the bond request, it was essentially not only acquisition, but to get this project shelf ready. So had we not had those grant opportunities, we at least would have had a viable project for future grant applications. And this is the proposal that would have joined that level of service. So the money's in the bank for this right now. But again, the stars continue to align for the Carpenter Nature Preserve project. So with the award of the Next Level Conservation Trust grant, as well as the land water grant, we will have $3.5 million in reimbursements coming our way associated with this project. So those are our construction funds, and we will scale this project to make sure it is in budget with those, as well as utilizing our impact fees that are applicable to this project to get it delivered on time and within budget.
Anybody have any questions for Jared or Tricia on the Carpenter Nature Preserve? No?
When does that grant money come?
At closing is when we will be eligible for the $3 million reimbursement, but the $500,000 land water will be as the project goes on. So as those pay apps start coming in, we can recover those funds. And I will note, we will likely be before you as the project begins. So there was an additional service listed in this for additional construction management administration. Judd is a member of Tricia's team, and he has provided invaluable insight to our active rail trail projects and saved the town tens of thousands of dollars through his visiting the site and discussing what's going on a nearly day-to-day basis. So as we bid this project, I will likely request another portion of this proposal to join that phase.
So the most promising part of this conversation, just as somebody who's currently in a construction progress, that is money that's spent.
Ounce of prevention founder.
Yeah. Do we need a resolution then to accept this contract with REA?
To be signed after closing.
Okay,
Yeah.
October 5th or later.
okay. Would anyone like to make that motion?
So moved.
Ryan Cambridge makes a motion to accept the REA contract to be signed after closing on the property takes place October 5th. Do we have a second?
A second.
Jill Pack seconds. All right, let's take a vote. Jill Pack,
Aye.
Ryan Cambridge,
Aye.
Chris Barksdale,
Aye.
Kimberly Lane, Coralie Palmer.
Aye.
And I'll make it unanimous. Thank you, Jared. And thank you, Tricia. That's a lot of work that you've already done on this, and we look forward to making good progress out there. And now what this does is it kind of opens up the Parks Foundation, as we said before, to do more fundraising, to get more active in that space. And as far as that's concerned, we have an MOU that we're looking at with them, memorandum of understanding. So with that in mind, Jared, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes, so really this memorandum of understanding, it has no legal claims. It's just an agreement in writing between our two organizations. Just wanted to put out a framework for how we will work with the Zionsville Parks Foundation to advocate for donations from the private sector and organizations, where those donations can go, as well as how those donations would be utilized in our park system. So just commemorating that agreement for the exploration of that opportunity in our community. Several responsibilities listed and commitments within this document. I will say that this document is still being revised between the two parties, and at the end of my spiel here, I'll ask that the board considers this adopting and signing this pending any legal edits after review from Amy. But some commitments within it. So the Parks Foundation agrees to assist the park board in securing private philanthropic support through activities such as special fundraising events, land acquisition, and capital fundraising campaigns. The Parks Foundation shall review and discuss the Parks Department's funding needs and priorities, and shall assist the Parks Department and Park Board in soliciting and receiving gifts that are consistent with those needs and priorities, as well as the vision, mission, goals, and objectives of the Parks Department, Park Board, and Parks Foundation. The Parks Foundation agrees that in accepting gifts of all kinds that are intended for the benefit of the Parks Department, the Parks Foundation shall advise donors that any restrictive terms and conditions the donor attaches to such gifts for the Parks Department are subject to the Parks Department and Park Board's approval. So just making sure that no promises are made along the way that we can't keep, and that everything's kept in line. So one provision I did place in here just to continue to uphold the process is upon a potential donation of a major gift that is a benefit to the park system. So that would be, we are defining major gifts as any land donation or financial commitment for a park asset that is over $50,000 in value. The Parks Foundation will create a proposal to the superintendent of Parks and Recreation. And upon my review, I'll bring it before you all. So if we're making large changes in our park system, I want to have the governance of the park board to make those decisions. So our commitments as a park board would be the park board through the Parks Department shall actively seek private philanthropic support and refer donors to the Parks Foundation when there is a preference for giving to a 501c3 organization. The park board will provide a liaison to the Parks Foundation. So we're already fulfilling that commitment through Jill Pack to assist with communication between the parties. The park board liaison shall not instruct or in any way require the Parks Foundation to take any particular action, and shall permit such liaison to exercise their own judgment. The park board, through its Parks Department, shall provide an annual list of private funding needs and priorities for discussion, from which the Parks Foundation may make suggestions and choose to actively seek and accept funds. And the Parks Department will expend all funds once accepted and received in accordance with Indiana law and Town of Zionsville policies, in adherence with the general charitable purposes of the Parks Foundation, and its conformance with any restrictions imposed by the donors of the Parks Foundation as to the use or purpose of those funds. So the term of this agreement was set for 5 years, at which point it could be extended, and it can also be terminated at any time upon notification from either party. So again, not a legally binding document, but just a memorandum of the intentions of our two organizations working together in the future.
And as Jared mentioned briefly, they did give us a red line version earlier today that makes some minor changes, but it's mostly just language and things like that. I don't know, Amy, can you speak to that about what their red line version is seeking to do?
Yes, I think primarily it's just some minor language changes. They did remove the commitment of the Park Foundation, which we had on there as commitment number 2, which had read, the Parks Foundation shall solicit and receive funds and other property and make expeditious expenditures to the Zionsville Parks and Recreation Department to support the programs, activities, and needs of the Parks Department. Funds raised by the Parks Foundation shall be given to the Parks Department in their entirety, except where the Parks Foundation retains a portion of the funds raised for organizational and fundraising expenses or to build its capacity to raise future funds. In all cases, donor intent shall govern. that was the provision that they struck, and I think that their intent for striking it is just to, they found that a little limiting. They wanted to be, more independent and not solely focused and required to solely focus on the Parks Department.
Okay. So what do we do then in respect to this MOU tonight?
I think that you could, I've reviewed this, I've reviewed it a little bit earlier, and then just before the meeting, I had a chance to review it, and I'm okay with their changes. So I think that you could just vote to approve the MOU with these changes and authorize John to sign.
Okay. Any questions about that? Yes.
So the Parks Foundation is reserving the right to raise funds and issue funds to other entities other than the Parks Department.
Yes, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Our scope is what our scope is, but believe it or not, there's actually a Central Indiana Land Trust property in Zionsville. It's not really accessible by the public or anything like that, but should those unique scenarios happen where it's still in line with their mission, I think just the autonomy to also support that initiative, they want to retain.
So they're defining themselves as parks generally in, okay. I just want to be clear.
Same thing with libraries, right? Like if they wanted to help a
Well, like our
library.
library foundation cannot give money to anybody but the library.
Oh,
Period. They exist.
Oh, no,
solely
I
to-
meant like if
But-
the Park Foundation wanted to work on like a literacy related nature project at a library.
Yes, they could
They
then,
would
yeah,
need
under
the-
this
yeah.
instance, yeah. So I just wanted to know where those lines were.
Yep.
That's all.
Yeah, we don't have control over them. They're not,
Absolutely.
they don't exist based on our pleasure. They're their own organization. So anybody else have a problem with that or any other comments about that? No? Okay. So with that in mind, would like to make a motion to accept this MOU with the red line changes, giving me the opportunity to sign on behalf of the Parks Board later.
So moved.
Chris Barksdale make a motion. Do we have a second? Orly Palmer seconds. All right, let's take a vote. Jill Pack,
Aye.
Ryan Cambridge,
Aye.
Chris Barksdale,
Aye.
Kimberly Lane,
Aye.
Orly Palmer. And I'll make that unanimous as well. Very good. All right, let's move on. The next item, Zionsville Parks Foundation art donation.
So this opportunity is quite fantastic. If you'll recall, a year ago, we partnered with the Boone County Community Foundation to install 3 murals on our rail trail. Those images were presented to the park board and approved last year. Unfortunately, the Oak Street and Mulberry tunnels were too smooth. They were too user-friendly, so they did not adhere to the paint. So the funds for the blower tunnel are actually reallocated to have those tunnels sandblasted, and we've had a great success with the adherence of that paint this year and hopefully in many years to come. So definitely was the right move for the success of the project, but that left one potential structure that could have received public art. So the Zionsville Parks Foundation are picking up that initiative and running with it. So they are proposing a new mural to join the Bloor Lane underside of their bridge to complete our 3 series of murals along the rail trail, highlighting our natural world. So a new rendering will be presented of what that mural will look like for your consideration. But they're just asking for the permission to add that to our park system. So currently I come before you as these opportunities arrive, but in the future, this technically would be below that $50,000 threshold. So with our mechanisms, we might have been able to move on that without this board's authority, but I'll probably always bring things to you because I want to double check. But just for your consideration to accept and allow the Zionsville Parks Foundation to donate a mural on the Bloor Lane overpass.
And the park board and or you will have an opportunity to preview this
Yes.
and provide feedback on the art and content.
Absolutely. Yep.
Anybody have any comments about that? Any more questions or anything? Okay. Do we need to vote on that? Amy?
Yes, I go.
Okay, do we have a motion to accept the art donation by the Parks Foundation?
So moved.
Ryan Cambridge makes a motion, second. Orly Palmer was first to second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? All right, let the record show the motion carries unanimously. A couple other items under new business. Jared?
Oh, sure, absolutely. So utilizing our special use permit agreement template that Amy created for us earlier last year, we have a request from the Zionsville Youth Flag Football League to allow Kona Ice to vend to their patrons. This would be on the September 20th practice and just offer refreshments to their spectators and players throughout that event. So this is a nonprofit, so just wanted to request approval from the park board to allow that activity on September 20th for the Zionsville Youth Flag Football practice. In this scenario, there would be money changing hands, so the vendor would be accepting cash for those Kona Ice supplies.
I don't know about you, I don't want to vote against Kona Ice. So do we have a motion to accept that special use permit?
No, yes.
Jill Pack makes a motion. Do we have a second? Kimberly Lane seconds. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, unanimous. Kona Ice is a unanimous favorite tree. All right.
All right.
Jared, one more, right?
One other item, yes. We were requested to meet at Elm Street Green with a contractor who's hoping to do some work in a neighbor's property. The issue with, the tight housing situation in the village is that access can be limited. So this contractor and the family associated with the project are requesting access through Elm Street Green to the project. So this is the Storen project right next door. If you'll recall, the Storens have been neighbors to the park for decades now and have actually provided an easement to the town for that future connection between Elm Street Green and Lions Park. So the request before you this evening is to allow for a temporary construction easement through Elm Street Green. The contractor would utilize the entrance drive as well as a 25-foot span that would go from the drive to the Storens property to the south. So there is the potential to damage that walking path and close that for a period of time as a part of this project. But we have the verbal agreement as well as information included within this easement that anything that would be damaged would be made whole at the end of the project. So the window for this project would be beginning this fall potentially and going through December of 2024. But we understand that there wouldn't be consistent construction activity that entire time. There would likely be some trucks coming in and then the project moving forward, and then larger trucks coming in when it's requiring stone or cement or something like that.
So in the instance that some early mobilization or deliveries occur, and, there's frequently damage, right, to pedestrian sidewalks by heavy equipment, which is totally normal and they're easy to replace. But if the construction is not going to be complete for a year, is there a chance we would end up with an interim condition if some of the pavement's damaged, where we might have a trip hazard or an ADA issue or something like that that should be addressed even in the interim?
That's a great question. More than likely, once it's damaged, it's going to sit damaged until the end, as you're suggesting. So perhaps there should be some kind of revision where that's at least made traversable and 53s are added.
Yeah, and it could be temporary.
Yeah.
I mean, even with, fully set asphalt or something, but just to make sure that, it's safe and traversable throughout the duration of the construction period.
Yeah, we can add that in. Especially since it is, over a year that they're requesting.
Yeah, and if they're coming in at the bottom of the hill, kids come down that hill pretty quickly, and hitting a bump at the bottom at speed. Would be bad for me anyway.
All right, so with that additional proviso there, do we have a motion to accept the scope of work there on the neighboring property at Elm Street Green and allow permission for access to get that done? Kimberly Lane makes that motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Ryan Cambridge seconds. Let's take a vote. Jill Pack.
Aye.
Ryan Cambridge.
Aye.
Chris Barksdale.
Aye.
Kimberly Lane. Coralie Palmer. And I would say aye as well. All right. Is that it for new business?
That's it for new business.
Okay. Let's move on then to old business, and our old business items are happy, positive ones tonight. Jared?
That's right. So the rail trail widening project is moving along appropriately, quickly, and fantastically. So I appreciate the board meeting in a special meeting at the end of last month to approve that change order. So the contractor has been busy undercutting those areas and installing a subgrade that'll be sufficient for paving. We just received information that paving was anticipated for the end of this month, but they might be able to move that up a week and potentially begin next week. So our substantial completion date as it sits is around October 13th at this time. So this project's going to wrap up pretty soon and it'll be reopened to our community. Moving on to the final old business item, the rail trail trailhead. I promise it's 99% done. We just have one issue inside we want to resolve before we cut the ribbon and allow people to start using it. So it's wrapping up great. The seed's starting to take, so we're identifying those areas that need reseeded, as well as some punch list items. But all in all, we're really happy with this contractor and how they progressed in this project, and just want to wrap it up and get it cut open.
Yeah, we'll have some sort of opening ceremony for that, right? So stay tuned. I'll send out a message to everybody when that's going to take place. So
Go in and flush the toilet.
we'll get in there and flush the toilet and everybody will be happy. That sounds great. Okay, great. Thank you, Jared. Any other board related items to discuss tonight? All right, the next, anything else, Jared, before
That's all for
I
me.
move on? Okay, the next item on the agenda is claims, and we have sort of an unusual claim register tonight. It's a very high number, probably the highest number the Parks Department has ever had, over $5 million. Top of page 7 there, you see the purchase of the Carpenter Nature Preserve. That's the bulk of it. And then, of course, the lawnmower that we got for the golf course is on page 10. So those are some of the big ticket items. But beyond that, does anybody have any questions or comments about the claims? Would anyone like to make a motion to accept the claims as presented?
I will move to accept the claims as presented.
Joe Pack makes a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Ryan Cambridge seconds. Let's go on the record here. Joe Pack.
Aye.
Ryan Cambridge.
Aye.
Chris Barksdale.
Aye.
Kimberly Lane. Coralie Palmer.
Aye.
I say aye as well, which means that we've now officially approved the funds to purchase the Carpenter Nature Preserve. So that is a wonderful, wonderful thing for our town. Thank you, everybody, for that. And with that, I'd like to remind everybody that we have lots of paperwork to sign tonight, so please do that before you leave the room. And our next meeting is October 11th. Hope to see everybody here then. And with that, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
How about everybody jump at that? Ryan Cambridge makes the motion. We have a second. Kimberly Lane seconds. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? That's it. We're adjourned. Thank you so much. We'll see you on October 11th.